Ladies and gentlemen, let's get the credit out of the way here. The theory I'm about to present here is nothing I came up with, but is rather something that a commenter dropped on my most recent theory video on Killer Frost. And he really does make a good point. Now, a lot of us have noticed the newly introduced piece of jewelry that Caitlyn is wearing on the Season 4 trailer, that being the choker necklace around her neck. The assumption has so far been about suppressing and controlling her powers. A lot of us have also noticed the return of the Captain Cold gun, or a gun that looks significantly like it, right in Caitlyn's hands on the very same trailer. The question here is, are these two objects somehow connected? Now, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing his or her name correctly here, but one Atria Baggin dropped a comment suggesting that instead of absolute suppression of powers, the choker might actually be aiming at channeling them into weapons, like the cold gun for instance. Now, if that were to hold true, I think it would be about the cold gun rather than weapons in general, and I think Caitlyn's powers are being used to charge that gun. That would also mean it doesn't necessarily have to be Snart's gun, but rather a weapon that has been specifically built for Caitlyn, and in conjunction with the choker, channels her powers into it. I really can't see any other smart reason why Caitlyn would be holding that gun unless it was all for dramatic effect, and even then, I don't really see the dramatic effect out of it. Now, there are a couple of reasons that could make this theory very viable and would actually make it into a great idea. Let's start with us wanting to avoid repetition. For one, they have already tried the plain braceleted necklace suppression ideas, but they seem to be very short-sighted. There's also the fact that the suppression of Killer Frost means she comes out all mean, evil, and unwilling to listen to reason. It's like the more you suppress Caitlyn's abilities, the more her alter ego rises to power once the suppression is stopped. At least that's how the show has depicted her ongoing situation over the course of the third season. Early on in the season's events, we found out about her abilities at the very end of this episode, where she was just using them but not turning all Killer Frost. She then used them to bring Barry out of the mirror on the Mirror Master episode, but once more, that did not really get her to go all evil. There were physiological changes, but nonetheless, nothing that brought Killer Frost out. Only two things managed to bring out the evil persona inside of her out and in the open. The first was a mix of both, fear and anger, during the episode in which she paid a visit to her mother, asking her for help. Now, the events of the 7th episode are considerably similar, fear turning into Killer Frost, so I'm not really counting them in as a separate kind of incident. The second was when they removed her necklace when she almost died, later on in the events of the season, releasing a suppressed Killer Frost. Now, this second incident goes to prove that the more suppressed her abilities are, the angrier she gets, and the first goes to prove the angrier she is, the easier it is for Killer Frost to rise and take over. But besides that, if the show were to go further down the rebirth arc for the character, the one I discussed on my previous video, then it would make sense that they go all the way and have her maintain her abilities in some way, shape or form. A good way to do that would be this choker-cold gun relationship theory. That would also allow for her to become a bigger player on the show, a field player. So far, Arrow has their own full-time on-the-ground team working with Oliver, and the Legends are by default a team. Supergirl has been slowly building towards the same concept, with Monel assisting Kara a lot on the second season, the Martian Manhunter kicking in occasionally, and the Guardian becoming a permanent thing on the show. The Flash is the only show so far that has barely done that, you know, the ground team part, with only Wally on the ground with Barry, not really every single time. Now, with them adding the elongated man, Ralph Dibny, and having a villain as powerful as DeVoe, they'll need all hands on deck, and all powers on the ground approach, given the kind of chaos I expect he'll bring in his wake. Besides, so far there is no indication of plans to introduce the elongated man's better half, Sue Dibny, her existence in the Arrowverse, past or present, so I kind of imagine they might make him to a love interest for Caitlyn. And what better way to do that than have her working the field with him, just like Sue did in the comics. Now, I'm kind of looking forward for that being a solid possibility, because I want to see Caitlyn present us with some sort of a superpower throughout the next season. But do let me know in the comments what you think of all of this. Do you think the choker she was wearing on the trailer and the cold gun she was holding are somehow connected? Do you think she channels her powers through the gun as some sort of exerting control over both her powers and Killer Frost? And do let me know as well if you liked this video by slapping it a much appreciated like, and while you're at it, make sure you subscribe and enable notifications. But until I see you next time, thank you all for tuning in and have a great day.